If love leaves you broken, it wasn't love, it was control. Styled after Robert Cialdini. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it and let's get started. At first, it doesn't look like anything is wrong. You smile, you talk, you keep doing what you've always done. The routine holds you together like an old sweater, familiar, worn, but still warm. But deep down, something has started to rot. You can't name it yet. It feels like waking up tired after sleeping all night, like being surrounded by people and still feeling deeply alone, like silence that weighs more than noise. This is how toxic begins, not with violence, not with cruelty, but with small things, with a cold look that lasts a little too long, with a sarcastic comment you're supposed to laugh at, with the feeling that you're constantly walking on glass, unsure when it will crack beneath you. No one screams, no one breaks plates, but something in your stomach twists every time you're near them. Your body knows. Long before your mind catches up, your body whispers the truth. There's no rule book that tells you when someone has become poison. It's not always loud. It's not always obvious. Sometimes, it's in the things that don't happen. The apology that never comes. The hug that's always withheld when you need it most. The plans that are never made unless you beg for them. Love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades like light at sunset. Slow, quiet, almost beautiful. You begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if you're imagining things. You convince yourself they're just tired, just stressed, just going through something. You give excuses. You make exceptions. You justify. Because it's easier to believe in hope than to face the idea that you're slowly losing yourself. The first signs are invisible to everyone but you. You stop talking about your dreams. You stop laughing from your chest. You hesitate before sharing your opinion. You catch yourself changing your words to avoid conflict. Your inner voice gets quieter, replaced by theirs. And every time you bend, every time you silence yourself, something inside you disappears. Toxic doesn't always mean evil. Sometimes it means incompatible. Sometimes it means unconscious cruelty repeated so many times it becomes normal. It means your needs don't matter, your boundaries are jokes, and your silence is seen as agreement. It means your soul starts shrinking just to keep the peace. What's most dangerous is how subtle it is. It wears a smile. It says I love you after a week of cold shoulders. It brings flowers the day after a storm. It posts pictures with you while destroying you in private. And so you stay. Because the good moments shine just enough to blind you. Because you remember who they used to be. Because you hope they'll come back. But something deep inside you knows. It starts with tired eyes, with forced smiles, with the way your heart sinks when you hear their footsteps. You dread their presence, even as you pretend to welcome it. You shrink in conversations. You scan every word before you speak. Your nervous system is always alert. This is not love. This is survival. People around you might not see it. They see your photos, your dinners, your jokes at parties. They don't see the invisible leash. They don't hear the silence that chokes you. They don't see how much energy it takes just to exist next to them. And so you keep wearing the mask, because you don't want to explain, because you're not even sure it's real. The moment you start apologizing for your own feelings, for your own needs, for simply existing, that's the moment the toxicity has already entered your bones. You start saying, I'm sorry, before asking for anything. You start believing that your pain is a burden, that your discomfort is an overreaction, that your truth is too much. Toxicity doesn't need to scream. It just needs time. Time to wear you down. Time to convince you that small hurts aren't real. Time to break your confidence, one sigh at a time. And it always starts slow, like a gentle hand that turns into a grip, like a breeze that becomes a storm. You wake up one day and realize you don't know who you are anymore. You don't recognize the person in the mirror. You've learned to smile with your mouth, but never your eyes. You've learned to anticipate their moods more than your own. You've become someone who survives instead of lives. And this is only the beginning. The quiet phase. The phase where your soul whispers warnings before it starts screaming. Before the walls start closing in. Before you realize you've been drowning in shallow water, holding your breath, hoping someone will notice. But no one notices until you say it out loud, until you see it for yourself. Toxicity starts in the shadows, and until you shine a light on it, it grows, quietly, relentlessly, like a root under the floorboards, cracking everything from beneath. It never starts with control. It starts with charm, with laughter, with someone who seems to finally understand you. They say the right things, listen just enough, and give you pieces of themselves that feel like treasure. You feel seen. You feel chosen. That's how the chain is built. Not from steel, but from soft words and smiles that feel like home. At first. Then comes the shift. Slow, barely noticeable. One day, a compliment sounds like a warning. A joke carries a sting. A delay in response suddenly becomes a test of loyalty. They begin to reshape reality around you, word by word. They say you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. You learn to question your own reactions. You begin to believe them. The chain tightens. They never tell you what to do, not directly. Instead, they plant seeds. Doubt, guilt, fear. Are you really going to wear that? You're always overreacting. You're lucky I put up with this. And it's not the words alone. It's the tone, the pattern, the repetition. They don't raise their voice. They lower your self-worth a little every day, until the version of you that once felt confident, curious, bright, fades. You stop correcting them. You stop defending yourself. You start apologizing for your truth. The chain now holds. You tell yourself it's just a rough patch, that they're stressed, that it's not always like this. You remember the good days and hang on to them like lifelines. But those days become rarer, and yet when they come, they're golden. They say something kind, touch your hand, look at you the way they used to, and you melt. Because that old version of them still lives inside your memory, and that memory lies. You stay, not because you're weak, but because you're loyal, because you believe in people, because you hope. But toxic isn't about the worst thing they've done. It's about the constant erosion of your sense of self. You stop asking for what you need. You convince yourself it's too much. You shrink your desires, your space, your voice. You say it's fine when it isn't. You laugh to keep things smooth. You agree to keep the peace. You think that love requires sacrifice, and that if you just love hard enough, they'll change. They won't. Their power grows in silence. Every time you stay quiet when you should speak. Every time you swallow your pain to avoid conflict. Every time you justify something you'd never accept for someone else. The chain isn't physical. It's psychological. It's made of words. Words they say, and words you stop saying. But here's the truth that poisons their illusion. No one has the right to rewrite your reality. No one has the right to tell you who you are, what you feel, or what you deserve. And the moment someone does, no matter how sweet they sound, the rot has begun. It spreads in the pauses between their kindness, in the way your body tenses before you see them, in the way your joy dims just being near. Control doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like persuasion, like logic, like love twisted into a tool. They don't need to lock a door. They just need to make you think there's nowhere else to go. That without them, you're lost. That without them, you're nothing. But that's a lie. They fear your freedom more than anything. Because if you ever remember who you were before the chain, it will break. And they know it. There's a kind of love that doesn't feel like love at all. It looks like it from the outside. People see the two of you together and say things like, "You're perfect for each other," or "You're lucky to have someone who cares so much." But what they don't see is what happens when the doors close, When the voice that once whispered, "I love you," now slices through you like a blade. When touch becomes currency. When affection is a prize you have to earn. This kind of love doesn't hold you. It holds you down. It's not a safe place. It's a maze where every wrong turn feels like your fault. You're not being loved. You're being managed. Toxic love isn't always violent. Sometimes it's calculated calm. It's the steady withdrawal of attention. It's sex used as leverage. It's finances controlled in subtle ways, just enough to make you think twice before leaving. They might say they support you, but somehow your victories make them cold. Your independence feels like betrayal. They want you to shine, but only under their shadow. They speak of trust, but go through your messages when you're asleep. They want honesty, but twist your words the moment they feel threatened. This isn't about love. It's about power dressed up in affection. And the worst part is, you blame yourself. When they pull away, you think it's because you weren't enough. When they're angry, you wonder what you did wrong. You try harder. You stay quieter. You give more. But it's never enough. It was never meant to be. Because the rules keep changing. One day, they want closeness. The next, they say you're too much. One day, they shower you with compliments. The next, they look at you like you're a stranger. This emotional chaos isn't random. It's design. It's a pattern. You're being conditioned to associate love with instability, with hunger, with fear. They don't need to hit you to hurt you. They just need to make you doubt your instincts, to make you question your emotions, to make you feel like you're the problem. Over time, you start to accept the unacceptable. You stop resisting. You start living in their world, by their rules, on their timeline. Your needs are dismissed. Your boundaries are broken. And every time you speak up, they paint you as the enemy. You're too dramatic, too needy, too difficult. And so, piece by piece, you disappear. But deep inside, something stays alive. A quiet voice, a flicker of rage, a memory of how it used to feel before the weight of their love began to crush you. That part of you is sacred. It knows the truth. It remembers who you are when you're not trying to survive someone else's moods. And that part is what will save you. Not all at once, not without pain, but it will. Because real love doesn't humiliate, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't punish with silence. Real love doesn't ask you to erase yourself to be worthy. It meets you where you are. It makes space for your voice. It softens in conflict. It holds, even when things are hard. And when you finally feel that, when you see the difference, you'll understand that what you called love before wasn't love at all. It was control, wrapped in warmth, dressed in devotion, masked as meaning, but never real. There's a lie we're told early in life, that family always means love, that blood automatically guarantees safety, that those who raise you, feed you, clothe you, must care for you. But the truth is colder. Some of the deepest wounds come from those who claim to love us the most. They speak in the language of duty, tradition, and sacrifice. But what they really offer is guilt, control, expectations heavy enough to crush a soul. They call it guidance, but it feels like suffocation. They say it's for your own good, but it always seems to serve their own fears, their own image, their own needs. You grow up being told what to be, how to speak, who to trust, what to feel. Every step you take is measured against their invisible rulebook. If you step out of line, the punishment isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silence, distance, shame delivered in half smiles and raised eyebrows. We're disappointed in you. After everything we've done, you've changed. Those words sting deeper than any slap, because they hit the core. They say, your truth is not welcome here. Your freedom is betrayal. In toxic families, love becomes conditional. You are loved if you obey, if you conform, if you play the role, the golden child, the fixer, the quiet one, the perfect one. But the moment you try to be real, raw, flawed, different, the cold sets in. They withdraw. They attack. They remind you who holds the power. And if you challenge them, you become the villain, the ungrateful one, the rebel, the problem. It's a rigged system, one that keeps you small by design. You start hiding parts of yourself, your dreams, your opinions, your pain. You smile through family dinners, laugh at jokes that belittle you, nod while your voice dies inside. And they act like everything is fine. Because in toxic families, appearance matters more than truth. What people see is more important than what you feel. You become an expert in pretending, in performing, in surviving behind a smile. Sometimes, the hurt is more direct. They call you names, compare you to others, remind you that you're not enough. They control your money, your choices, your time. They monitor your life under the guise of care. We just worry about you. You wouldn't survive without us. It sounds like concern, but it's a cage you're expected to thank them for. But here's the hardest part. Breaking free feels like betrayal. You carry guilt like a second skin. You question your memories. You wonder if you're exaggerating, being dramatic, ungrateful. But your pain is real. Your truth matters. And no one, not even family, has the right to dim your light just because it makes them uncomfortable. Healing from a toxic family isn't about hating them. It's about choosing yourself. It's about drawing lines they never taught you to draw. It's about grieving the love you never received and learning to give it to yourself instead. It's about walking away, emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, and saying, I deserve better. Even if they never understand, even if they never change, because your peace matters more than their approval. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is leave. Not all friendships are built on love. Some are built on need, on imbalance, on one person giving and the other one taking, again and again. It starts off light. You connect over shared laughter, stories, struggles. They open up fast, maybe too fast. They tell you their pain, and you listen. You support. You hold space. And it feels good to be needed. It feels meaningful. But slowly, something shifts. The conversations turn into monologues. The problems never end. The energy starts flowing in one direction. You become the therapist, the cheerleader, the savior. And they stay exactly where they are. Always in crisis. Always needing. Always consuming. Toxic friendship doesn't always look harsh. Sometimes it wears the face of vulnerability. But beneath the surface, it's manipulation. They expect you to be available, no matter what. They get distant when you set boundaries. They get cold when you're not their first priority. You begin to feel guilty for having your own life, for having good news, for being okay when they're not. So you start hiding your happiness, minimizing your success, making yourself small so they don't feel threatened. That's not connection. That's emotional blackmail. They might say they love you, that they're grateful, but watch how they act when you're the one in pain. Do they listen, or do they turn the focus back to themselves? Do they hold space, or do they make it about how your pain affects them? Real friendship is mutual, safe, soft. But in a toxic dynamic, your emotions become tools. Your struggles are either competition or inconvenience, and your peace is something they can't handle. Over time, your body starts to resist them. You feel heavy before seeing their name on your screen. You rehearse what to say just to avoid drama. You dread being honest because every truth turns into a trigger. You begin to lie, not to deceive, but to protect yourself. You say you're busy when you're not. You say everything's fine when it's not. Because telling the truth means conflict, emotional fallout, manipulation masked as care. You carry their weight, their chaos, their sadness, until you realize your own is buried underneath. You forget who you are without them. You forget what stillness feels like, what ease feels like. You mistake constant emotional work for loyalty, but love that drains you isn't love, it's dependency. And being needed is not the same as being respected. Letting go feels cruel. You remember the good times, the laughter, the secrets shared late at night. You tell yourself it wasn't always bad. But the truth is, friendship isn't measured by memories. It's measured by how you feel in their presence. And if you leave every interaction more tired, more confused, more hollow, that's all you need to know. You deserve friendships that nourish, not consume, that uplift, not suffocate, that respect your silence as much as your words. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your energy. You don't owe anyone the right to drain you just because they call you best friend. Sometimes the most honest act of love is walking away from what no longer feels like love. Not every cage has bars. Some have emails, deadlines, meetings, smiles that never reach the eyes. You show up every day, dressed in what they call professionalism, but it feels more like armor. You speak politely, move efficiently, keep your voice even, your emotions tucked away. Because here, feelings are weakness. Opinions are threats. Rest is laziness. You adapt. You push. You convince yourself this is what success looks like. But slowly, something in you begins to crack. Not loudly, quietly. Like a whisper behind your ribs that says, "This isn't it." Toxic work doesn't always scream. It praises you while draining you. It rewards overworking with more work. It celebrates burnout as dedication. The boss smiles at your exhaustion and says, "You're a real team player." Your overtime becomes expected. Your weekends disappear. Your phone never stops buzzing. And the worst part, you start measuring your worth by how much you endure. You say things like, "It's just a busy season," or "Things will calm down soon." But they never do. Because the system is built on you believing that productivity equals value. You're told to be grateful for the opportunity, for the paycheck, for being part of something bigger. But gratitude doesn't erase abuse. A stable income shouldn't cost you your identity. Your body starts showing signs. Tension in your jaw, headaches, sleepless nights. You wake up tired, dread the day before it starts. Your smile at work feels mechanical. You stop dreaming, stop creating. You're surviving, not thriving. But the culture rewards that. The more you ignore yourself, the more praise you get. There's no room for softness here. If you cry, you're unstable. If you speak up, you're difficult. If you rest, you're replaceable. So you harden. You stop sharing. You start saying yes when everything in you screams no. You perform instead of live. You exist to be useful, not to be whole. Toxic workplaces thrive on fear. Fear of losing your job, your place, your reputation. So you stay silent. You comply. And slowly, you become someone you don't recognize. And then there's the manipulation. The "we're all a family here" lie. A family where power matters more than people. Where feedback means criticism. Where boundaries are seen as rebellion. You attend team-building exercises while your spirit erodes. You hear words like culture and community, but feel emptier with each passing day. You give everything and still feel like you're not enough. Because they don't want you whole. They want you useful. You start to fantasize about quitting. Not just the job, but the version of you who agreed to this. The part that thought being treated like a machine was normal. The part that forgot how it feels to breathe. To wake up and not dread. To work and still feel alive. That part of you still exists, waiting, hoping you'll listen, hoping you'll choose yourself, not the performance of being okay. Leaving isn't weakness, it's strength. Choosing your peace over their pressure is an act of power. You're allowed to outgrow spaces that no longer fit your soul. You're allowed to want more than a paycheck, more than a title. You're allowed to want joy, balance, freedom. And the moment you remember that, the cage starts to crack. The hardest truth is this: sometimes the most toxic person in your life is the voice in your own head, the one that echoes things others once said, the one that repeats old wounds as if they're gospel. You look in the mirror and don't just see your face. You see every failure, every rejection, every moment you weren't enough, and you believe it. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. You've internalized every cruel word they ever said and made it your own. Now you don't need them to hurt you. You do it yourself. It starts subtly. You call yourself lazy when you're tired, weak when you're scared, stupid when you forget. You hold yourself to standards no one else could meet, and then punish yourself for falling short. You downplay your achievements. You silence your joy. You see softness as weakness, rest as guilt, boundaries as selfishness. You become your own jailer, enforcing rules you never agreed to, living in a prison built from shame, and you wonder why you feel heavy all the time. This inner voice didn't appear on its own. It grew from every childhood moment when love was conditional, from every adult who made you feel like too much or not enough, from every comparison, every judgment, every time your truth was ignored. It became a survival strategy, a way to keep you small, quiet, safe. If you criticize yourself first, no one else can hurt you. If you expect failure, you won't be disappointed. If you suppress your needs, you won't be rejected. But that voice, no matter how protective it once was, is now poison. It keeps you from trying, from trusting, from living. You don't have to believe everything you think. Not every thought is truth. Not every feeling is fact. That voice in your head is not your essence. It's a recording, and it can be rewritten. But it won't go away by force. It fades when you stop feeding it, when you choose curiosity over judgment, when you meet your own pain with compassion instead of punishment, when you begin to notice the pattern and say, no, not this time. Healing means learning a new language, one where you speak to yourself like someone you love, one where mistakes are not sins, but lessons, where growth matters more than perfection, where rest is sacred, softness is strength, and your worth is not based on how much you produce or endure. You were not born to be at war with yourself. You were not born to be your own enemy. It takes time. Some days, the old voice will shout louder. It will try to pull you back into the familiar. But every time you choose kindness over cruelty, silence over self-attack, truth over fear, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You make space for the version of you that was never broken, only buried, only waiting. You are not the wounds they gave you. You are not the fear they planted. You are not the voice that doubts your every move. You are the one who hears that voice and chooses differently. That's where the power begins. That's where the healing lives. In the quiet, steady decision to stop being your own poison and start becoming your own protector. There comes a moment, not dramatic, not loud, when something inside you simply says, enough. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, a kind of stillness that feels heavier than chaos. You look around at the life you've built inside pain, inside control, inside other people's expectations, and you see it clearly for the first time. You see how much of yourself you've given away just to be loved. How often you've stayed quiet just to keep the peace. How far you've drifted from the person you once were. And in that moment, you don't get angry, you get clear. Taking your power back isn't a single decision. It's 1,000 small ones. It's saying no when your voice shakes. It's resting without guilt. It's walking away from people who don't hear you, even when it hurts. It's being alone rather than begging for connection that cost you your peace. At first it feels wrong, selfish, cold, but it's not. It's healing. Because when you've spent your whole life over-giving, over-explaining, over-fixing, choosing yourself feels like rebellion. But it's not rebellion. It's return. You start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, before trauma shaped your decisions, before fear controlled your steps, and you begin to rebuild, not with force, but with gentleness. You no longer chase people to prove your worth. You no longer accept crumbs and call it care. You no longer apologize for existing fully. The relationships you attract now are different. They feel calm, respectful, spacious. They don't trigger survival. They invite safety. But not everyone will understand this version of you. Some will say you've changed, that you've become distant, cold, unavailable. What they really mean is, they can no longer manipulate you. You no longer play the role they wrote for you. You're not here to make them comfortable anymore, and that makes them uneasy. But it's not your job to explain your healing to those who benefited from your suffering. This kind of power isn't about dominance. It's about return to truth, to clarity, to choice. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing someone whole, not perfect, not invincible, but real. Someone who's been through fire and came out softer, not harder, wiser, not bitter, alive, not afraid. You stop living on edge. You stop overthinking every move. You trust yourself again. And that trust becomes the foundation of a new life, one where you no longer give yourself away just to be chosen. You realize now, you were never too much. You were just surrounded by people too small to hold you. You were never hard to love. You were just giving your love to those who couldn't see it. And now, you no longer beg. You no longer chase. You no longer stay where you're not celebrated. You know what peace feels like. And anything less feels like poison. That is the return of power, quiet, grounded, unshakable, a knowing that runs deeper than fear, a presence that no longer needs to be loud to be felt. You don't need to prove yourself anymore, you just are, and that is more than enough. Toxic relationships aren't always obvious. They don't always come with raised voices or broken things. Sometimes they come wrapped in comfort, in familiarity, in years of shared history. And that's what makes them dangerous, because you start mistaking pain for normal. You start thinking love is supposed to hurt. That compromise means losing parts of yourself, that caring for someone means abandoning yourself. But none of that is true. Love is not supposed to break you down to prove it's real. It's supposed to build you, hold you, let you breathe. The real danger of toxic connections is how they distort your perception. They make you question your instincts. They rewrite your memories. They leave you unsure of what's real and what's not. And the longer you stay, the harder it is to see clearly. You stop trusting yourself. You tell yourself you're dramatic, that it's not that bad, that others have it worse. But the pain you feel is your truth. The exhaustion, the confusion, the way your light dims every time they walk into the room, that's not drama. That's data. There are signs, always, not just in words, but in energy, in how your body reacts. If you tense up when they call, if you rehearse what to say before every conversation, if you feel drained after spending time with them, if you feel smaller, less, invisible, these are not small things. They're warnings. Your nervous system speaks louder than your mind. Listen. Your discomfort is not something to push away. It's your inner compass trying to guide you back to safety. Avoiding toxic relationships isn't about fear. It's about respect for yourself. It's about knowing the cost of staying silent, of being loyal to people who keep hurting you. It's understanding that no connection, no matter how long or how intense, is worth your soul. The people you allow into your life shape you. They influence your thoughts, your energy, your identity. If someone consistently makes you doubt your worth, your voice, your reality, they do not belong near your heart. And here's the truth many ignore. Healing is not just about leaving. It's about recognizing the patterns that led you there in the first place. It's about asking why you tolerated what you did, what story you were told about love, what beliefs made you stay, and then breaking those patterns, gently but clearly, so you don't repeat them, so you don't pass them on, so you don't mistake intensity for intimacy again. Real love does not confuse you. It doesn't demand that you earn it. It doesn't punish you for being human. Real love is clear, grounded, safe. It allows you to rest, not walk on eggshells. It makes you feel more like yourself, not less. And when you experience that, truly, deeply, You'll never again settle for anything less. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You just start choosing differently. You start choosing you, always. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.